you won't find better cattle country than the Nebraska Sandhills. 250 miles long with barely a rock and scarcely a tree, a sea of unbroken long grass. Chester Paxton has run Herefords near the Dismal River for half a century. The family's roots are still firmly embedded in sandhill soil. Friends and neighbors still gather to help with branding, just as it has always been. And each year, Paxton cattle cross the Dismal River to graze the Halsey National Forest Range, a river and a tradition daughter Jessica remembers from her earliest days. Running a 12,000-acre ranch is a full-time job, but Chet Paxton has devoted a lifetime to the beef industry and to the principles he believes in. He was instrumental in the development of the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, beginning in 1953 as an original member of the Board of Trustees and later on the Board of Directors. He is a charter member of the National Museum. Chester Paxton represented his state at formal groundbreaking ceremonies for the new National Cowboy Hall of Fame and Western Heritage Center in 1958. A leader in the cattle industry, he served on the executive board of the Nebraska Stock Growers Association, the executive board of the American National Cattlemen's Association, and as a director of the National Livestock Brand Conference. Chester Paxton also represented his state during a term in the Nebraska State Senate. But his late wife Ida, daughter Jessica, and now son-in-law John and grandchildren have always been first with Chet Paxton. The ranch and the sandhill country he's always known follow closely behind. Traditional values and a work ethic that make this man beloved to all who know him.
On outfits across the Wyoming high country, everyone knew him as Doc, one of the best ranch veterinarians in the business. A man who always came when called, and would often save an animal no one else could. But Doc Carroll had known a different life, the taste of arena dust and the roar of a stadium on its feet, the terror of the war to end all wars, and even the thrill of the camera as a stunt double for some of the greatest stars of the Hollywood Western's golden age. Floyd E. Carroll was the oldest son of Thomas Carroll, a pioneer rancher and legislator, and schoolteacher Jenny Miskimins Carroll. Floyd rode before he walked on their ranch near Cheyenne, Wyoming. F. E. Carroll hired out at 16 to the Two-Bar Ranch. He could soon handle the roughest stock that came his way. At age 21, the kid from Wyoming became the youngest cowboy ever to win world champion bronc riding honors at the Cheyenne Frontier Days Rodeo. Floyd's parents had insisted on a more formal education than the school of rodeo could give him. He obliged them by graduating at the top of his Kansas State Veterinary Medical School class in 1916. Dr. Carroll enlisted and served as a lieutenant in the Remount Corps during World War I. After the war, he returned to the Wyoming family ranch and met a young schoolteacher named Grace Parks. He called her Charlie, and they married that same year. Doc moved his young family to Hollywood, where his way with horses earned wages as a stuntman, doubling for Tom Mix and other motion picture stars of the day. But Wyoming was home, and Doc and Charlie returned. He soon established a veterinary hospital in Laramie. During his career, Doc Carroll logged 50,000 miles a year caring for livestock on Wyoming's remote ranches. The gentle doctor's love of animals didn't stop at the end of a long day. He usually had the family Pekingese under his arm. In 1963, his peers gave the respected veterinarian a sheepskin signed by every vet in Wyoming in honor of nearly 5 decades of practice. 2 years later, the Cheyenne Rodeo would present Dr. Carroll with a second buckle in honor of his 50-year anniversary of his 1914 World Champion bronc rider victory. Today, Duck's story is still told in the high country. Old-time ranchers there remember him fondly as the best vet, the best friend they ever knew. Family members treasure his career mementos, the memory of his good-natured laugh, and the way the big cowboy from Wyoming handled an ailing animal so tenderly. Lasting memories of a special man and a lifetime in the West.
I tried to take the reader to a high ridge that reaches into a hazy horizon. I saw this place and these people from the vantage point of twice knowledge. All I could do was to tell the story of these people who rose to the greatness demanded of them.
When the final list is made of those who wrote best of the history of this region, Maury Sandoz will surely appear near the top. Her style has been called both lyrical and savage, much like the land and the people she sought to capture on the printed page. From the classic based on her pioneer father, Old Jules, to the Cattlemen and Cheyenne Autumn, Maury Sandoz's West is one we now recognize as our own. It wasn't always that way. Old Jules, her first book, was rejected 13 times by nearly every publisher in America. She had devoted her life to her art at age 25. But Maury Sandoz, an internationally acclaimed writer, would try for 14 years before becoming a published author. She wrote from a fresh perspective, gained by a childhood spent near a Sioux reservation in northwest Nebraska's Freelands region. She would eventually become a leading authority on the culture and history of Plains Native Americans. The eldest child of Swiss immigrant parents, Maury learned to speak and read English in a one-room school on the Nebraska frontier. Marie, or Maury as she later liked to be called, became hooked on the printed word. She taught school after graduation, but would later enroll at the University of Nebraska, set on becoming a real writer. After the long, lean years before Old Jules was finally published in 1935, Maury left Nebraska, settling first in Colorado and then in New York. Between 1937 and 1966, she wrote more than 15 books, including 2 for children. Unlike many historic writers, several of her works are novels. She often wrote fact as though it were fiction, a compelling narrative style combining significant research with creative writing. Today, Maury Sandoz is recognized as one of Nebraska's 3 greatest authors, a distinction shared with Willa Cather and John Neihardt. The author is buried on the old Sandoz homestead, near the orchards of her youth and her beloved Sand Hills. She was and is unsurpassed as a storyteller of the Northern Plains. F. E. Carroll, Chester Paxton, and Maury Sandoz, 1998 inductees into the National Cowboy Hall of Fame's Hall of Great Westerners.